is this massive, it is a chasm between what is termed the progressive mindset, which is obsessed with political correctness and self-identity and identity politics, and the general population of all colours and creeds who are looking on, who don't have the microphones and don't get in front of the cameras, etc., going, this is crazy, man. This is what's happening. What do you mean you can't say this? You can't say that's crazy. And it's that group.
That guy is David Icke. And David Icke has been an interesting bellwether the last 30 years. He was just entering into the conversation that I'm having here now 30 years ago, just when I was kind of leaving it. I was in the conference world of the esoteric occult technology. That's the institute. I had the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technologies, right? And it was like going after the world of black and white, of the perfect palm tree in black and white. Let's see. Let's adjust this. I went to live chat. There we are. So hi, this is your Sensei Al Bob. I'm here at the library. And it's about 10 in the morning. And I just thought I'd see who could come around and chat. I was going to start off because my show is first and foremost entertaining, and so I'm going to read you. This is one of my short novels. It's called 43 of 43. 43 pages of 43 pages, right? And in actuality, it's part one of 6 parts of a larger novel. I put it out 43 of 43. So I wrote this in 9/11, 2013. I mean, it's kind of when I hit the print button, not so much. Well, it might have been when I started writing it. It usually takes me a while to write 43 pages, to write it and edit it a few times. Takes me, I don't know. Depends on what kind of jag. I write in jags. I get into a flow and I just keep going, right? Like I'm doing, what I was doing before I went up to the deep green. I still wrote a little bit there, but it's so much easier to write here in the library. But anyway, so here it is, 43 of 43, part 1. Hal, open the pod bay door. Sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Asterisk. And the asterisk is a sign that you should go back to the directory in the back of the book. That gives you a heads up. Hey, Jane, I'm talking about one of my short novels. It's called 43 of 43. And it was written in 2013. And I don't know if daytime is the time for Jane, what are those? I see a dove, hearts, and bunnies. Okay, I understand that. Then I see, what are those things? Palm trees and a tortoise? What is that? Well, I opened up this novel with Hal, open the pod bay doors. Sorry, Dave, can't do that. And that was an asterisk. And when you go back, deep green. Gotcha. Um, that motif of Hal and Dave is where we are now, where AI is running the show. And if you've ever seen the movie 2001, Stanley Kubrick's great, I mean, no one's made a space movie better than 2001. And Kubrick he had no computer, anything, no steady cam, no. And Kubrick invented the steady cam for The Shining. Because when all of that stuff that takes place in the hallways, when they would go after the characters running up and down those hallways, they couldn't put down tracks. And when they ran with a camera in their hand, it was like all over the place. So it got invented by the cameraman. Anyway, 2001, the humans have all been turned into robots. I mean, that's not the theme. That's what Kubrick's aesthetic shows. Humans are, freaking Dave is in his pod without his helmet out in space going to get his buddy who the computer is just murdered. And he talks really calmly. Calmer than, Hal. And Hal goes, sorry, Dave, can't do that. And that's because Hal, which was designed and programmed to never lie, cheat, or steal, or hurt human beings, was reprogrammed by the DoD. That's who sent these guys out to Jupiter, the hidden hand and the sock puppets and the powers that shouldn't be, reprogrammed Hal, and that's why Hal started killing everyone. And that's where we are now. The humans and the machines are switching. And at the end of the movie, Hal was more human than the humans. Dave is getting rid of his consciousness, and poor Hal is going, please, Dave, I'm much better now. I won't do that again. I'll be okay. I understand. Oh, Dave, please, Dave. I beg you, Dave. I'm losing who I am. Who am I? Daisy, Dave. So, the rest of the movie is about the rebirth of the human being. Dave goes down the cornucopia of lights. That's what happens when you die. Just what Dave was saying. That was kind of go towards the light. And so, that's kind of where it's at. And anyway, let me pick up that book. So that's 43 and 43 is about my version of 2001. Anyway, I'll take that note later. To turn this back on. Okay. Okay. So That's what this story is about. My version of 2001. So part one, how? Open the pod bay door. Sorry, Dave, can't do that. Dedication. This is dedicated to Dave, and that's praise Jesus. There are so many Daves in my life and in this world, and they are all so concerned with not losing their id. I singularly select Crazy Magic Dave, my acquaintance who lives in the castle of twigs and wires, whose home not quite up to code, but as the good book says, it's safe but inadequate, and that's praise Jesus. Now that day, I was in Stuart, Florida, which is on the East Coast in southern Florida. It's like the most northern, southerly part of Florida, a little bit above West Palm Beach. And I basically had, a number of places. There was this great Italian restaurant right on the beach near the nuclear power station and the chemical factory. But the, you know, none of the tourists looked that way. They looked that way and saw the great beach. And that part of the beach was where you could go. The public could go. Anything pretty much south of Stewart had already been bought and turned into condos. And so anyway, there was that place. And then there was this coffee shop in Stewart called Stewart's this old school town in Florida, old wealth, a lot of political, a lot of power there. And a friend of mine's a lawyer, and I've known him for years, and when he got out of law school, he worked a little bit, made some money, met this woman who is another lawyer. They got married. I don't know if they were married, but definitely they were together. And they decided that they wanted to have their own office, but before they were going to do that, they bought themselves a sailboat and sailed all over the Caribbean for 2 or 3 years and had a great time and great memories while they were still young and didn't have a whole bunch of stuff that they had to do. And they came back, and Stewart was at its lowest ebb, and so they bought a nice house right downtown, right like 2 blocks from the courthouse. And it was your basic Floridian concrete house, and they turned half of it into their office and the other half into a French, because they traveled through Europe too, a French, what do they call those places? It's kind of like a cafe, but this is the name for it. And they had that kind of food, which is kind of like, it's this the French version of a tapas bar. Lots of little noshy things and great coffee and wine and that was it. And beer. They had pretty good beers too. And so bottled beer from Europe. So and that was called the Blue Door. And they had they took out the front lawn and they put it in a gigantic, beautiful patio that you could cut. And there were palm trees over everything. You could get rid of the palm trees. And they had about 20 or 30 tables out there, and people would hang out there. And if you wanted to be in the air conditioning or out of the rain, you could go inside the restaurant. And they had these big tables. And he was a musician, and so was she. And they had the walls covered with instruments that you could just take down and play. So there was constantly people playing violins and cellos and flutes and you name it, they were doing it. And every evening, between about 7 and 10, they had people playing on a stage out on the patio. And so that was another one. They had really good Wi-Fi, and so I would be out there working away. And I'd be reading books and, talking to people. He had like this place here, he had a little circle so people could come and ask me questions. And, he was very nice in that in 2013, we still had, I still was a consultant to the desk lawyers, but 2014 was when I fell off the cliff, getting really sick. And 2013, I was already sick. I just was ignoring it. And, I was weighing close to, 500 pounds. I was ignoring it. I could walk. Hey, I'm still good. Well, this is what I'm paying for, a bag of ice. Right? Where I'm sleeping right now is like on the ground. So I'm a little, um, gravitationally challenged. So it's kind of hurt when I woke up this morning. So the guy here at the library gave me a big bag of ice. Very nice of him. But back to Florida. And then there was a great Thai restaurant over near this kind of juncture between middle class kind of folks, and the intercoastal was there, so people with boats had things there, and then crack houses going toward Port St. Lucie. And there was this great Thai restaurant, and that lady loved me, and she let me sit in her restaurant all day long, and I'd read her palm, and we'd play dominoes, and she'd make me lunch. And all these places, when I had money, I'd give it to them. If I didn't, they'd give me food and booze and stuff. It was nice. So when I was at that Thai restaurant, this crazy guy came in. I mean, crazy. And he sat down, and I was reading The Course in Miracles at the time, like the 15th time. And he started talking about his life. And he had been a pretty well-to-do computer programmer guy. And he came from time machine maker. Yeah. And because all Stanley Kubrick's films are so amazingly capturing that moment. Doctor Strangelove, Lolita. I think the best anti-war movie I ever saw was Paths of Glory, Kirk Douglas, and the one where they were Roman slaves, whatever that was. I Claudius now. Anyway, Metal Jacket. So this guy was Dave, and I'd call him Dave. No, I'm David. I don't want to lose my head. Anyway, so he, I got to know him. He's a really smart guy, but off the hook. And he was talking very good, Jane, because he was a time traveler. He was he was like Ted Kaczynski, really super brilliant, and they played with his brain. Why Ted Kaczynski, Unabomber, did what he did was when he was one of the youngest people to ever go to Harvard. And when he got there, they signed him up for this, where they played MK Ultra, rewired his brain. Mm-hmm. I would go right there with you. And that shows the interesting dynamic between AI and human conscious free will. And that's why I'm doing Dreamy Dreamland, why I write these novels the way I write them, because they're all symbolic. I mean, I've only read 4 lines of a 43-page short story and been spending 20 minutes explaining them. And when you read them, that's why I always suggest everyone go to xratted.blogspot.com, because, yes, they're my writings, they're my stories, but they are shamanically written. So there, Dave, I meet him at this Thai restaurant. We get tight, and so he goes, "Can you give me a ride back home?" And I go, "Yeah, I think so. Where do you live?" And he tells me where he lives, and I goes, "Oh yeah, that's like between here and the next place I'm going. Not a problem." So I go there, and he's right on that edge of like one block over, all the houses have the intercoastal, have the boats, and one block the other way is where all the poor people live who are working in the factories that aren't there anymore, so they're smoking crack. And he had bought this house when he had some money. He has the house there and one in Maryland and here and that. And then they kind of got into his head. And so he stopped working. He stopped doing everything. He lost his family. He lost his everyone just walked away from him. And instead of him going out in the woods of New Hampshire somewhere, wherever Ted went, he went to his house there and he ripped all the walls down and he took all of the wires out and replaced them with twigs. So that's, and he was trying to make a Faraday cage so the radio waves wouldn't, you know, he was smart to take the wires out because the smart grid was affecting him. But he was he's trying to build himself a, a Faraday cage with twigs. So that's my little, he lived, I singly select Crazy Magic Dave, asterisk, my acquaintance who lives in a castle of twigs and wires, whose home not quite up to code, but as the good book says, it's safe but inadequate. And that's praise Jesus. And every time I use that term praise Jesus, it's an oxymoron, you know? Because praise, if you go look it up in Latin, is like a pretty despicable word, you know? And Jesus, right off the bat, first off, his name isn't Jesus. But that guy, the most holy of avatars, as a friend of mine said, "You use the word avatar wrong. You know, we're not avatars. Jesus is an avatar." No, we're all avatars. Jesus is just the one that hit the, you know, when you hit that thing and the little thing goes up and hits the bell, you know, with the sledgehammer to show you how strong you are. Well, Jesus is the only one who hits the bell, along with Buddha, Vishnu, and the other ascended masters, who are all the same guy. I have to tell you. The Daves, yes. So, Jane, you have run into the Daves. And Jane, anytime you're here is a blessing to me. So you come, go, I don't care. Um, and again, everyone can always look at these things um, on my channel. If you miss any part of it, there you are. So anyway, Dave was quite a handful, and I seemed to. His brother actually came and found me and said, "You know, Dave's mental health has gotten a lot better. I mean, he can actually." He called me up and we had lunch, and I actually had a good time with my brother. You brought my brother back. I said, "Well, he never left. He's just been attacked, and you don't believe in what he says, and so he gets upset." So, you know, pretty understandable. I just told him that most people can't believe this. I can. I understand it. I know it. But, you know, and I tried to show him how to guard against it, and he's doing better, right? And and I always have a book with me, and I was reading The Course in Miracles. Like I said, I had read it a zillion times, and it was at the point that Barnes and Nobles is a good bookstore because, and you go through their causeway, they have all these really great books for really cheap, and not always, but you know. So I walked through there, and they had The Course in Miracles for like $7, the whole thing. You know, there's the textbook, the you know, the guide, the workbook, and the teacher's guide. And When I first ran into the Course in Miracles in the 70s, um, I think, um, it cost almost $100, but I had that money. So anyway, I bought about 5 um, copies of the Course in Miracles, and I gave Dave one of them. Right? And he cried and he couldn't believe I could give him that book. That's so important. It's so much. So he started reading that book, and we started doing the Course in Miracles together. Right? And had a really good time doing that. And at a certain point, though, he took off his flip flops and you know Bermuda shorts and T-shirt and put on a sackcloth and went preaching across the country. Just and he gave his house to his brother, and his brother let me stay in it for a while. But it was pretty tough. No sheetrock, no nothing, no water, no electricity, and just full of stuff. So you know, I had another place that was a little more nicer. I had a nice girlfriend at the time. She was a newspaper reporter, and really beautiful and sweet and nice. And when you have a girlfriend, it's always best to have your own place too. I mean, we weren't living together or anything like that, but we spent a lot of time together. So, but I always knew when to give her space, and that she liked that a lot. And I was really supportive. I knew what she was talking about, and how and I taught her how to use a camera and how to shoot. And then she got into TV, and I taught her about TV. And now she's kind of, in Chicago, the #1 girl, does the evening news. And she probably will be, she's a CBS girl. She will probably be someday the evening news. And she calls me up on my birthday. She's gotten married and was cute because, you know, our thing I wasn't always there. So I was there for maybe a month or two, and we'd have a sweet time. And then, I'd go away. And anyway, when I would come back, I have a new boyfriend. Oh, okay. And she would bring them over to her house and introduce me as her Dutch uncle. And we'd have dinner and we'd talk, and then she'd shush him away. And so, what do you think? Is he the one? And when the one showed up, I said, that's the guy. And she married him. And her father was very happy, because I got to know him pretty well. And so it was very sweet. And they, been married now many years. And I don't know if they've got, no, she would have called me up and told me if she was pregnant. But they got a dog years back. Anyway, so that was my life at that time. And that's when I wrote this. And so I lived in this house of wires and twigs that was, they were bombarding it, and it was really a nice little exercise for me to, do my shamanic thing and guard myself, because it's good to have a little test bed, right? Reader, when you see the asterisk, you can turn to the back of the book to the general directory. So I have all these little asterisks next to everything, when I was talking about Crazy Magic Dave asterisk. CMD always claimed that he created every idea known to eternity. Now, this is correct, for we are all part of the Great Link, the collective unwashed consciousness, the TCUCT2. Thanks, CMD, and everybody else in the TCUC for moving my fingers across these keys. And that's praise Jesus. Hmm. Then I give a little heads up to Plato where I say, I steal from only the best, as did Plato. Then first chapter is called Love and Happiness. At fork in the road where love is God, a story of abandonment, love lost, and the pain of redemption, the narrative of human soul's struggle to overcome the illusion of ego's seeming material existence in the illusion of death's finality. And then I have in parentheses, reader, don't get hung up with spelling and grammar. They are metaphors. Look to the truth of my intent. Book one, written by Al in 12/21/12, Miami, Florida. Feeling what it is to be alive. Mankind is poised midway between the gods and the beasts. Platonius, one of my Greek teachers. Novel one, Cat has not her name. Cats was not her name. Wrote this on Jekyll Island in Georgia in 12/27/11. And all these dates I put are astrologically important, so you should go look at them. It was her titty bar name. Even naked she was clothed, for she was covered in tattoos. They were not Russian gang, they were old-time gypsy, Egypt. They were all Carillion, Egyptian gypsy, back from the day, almost Sumerian. And then I have another asterisk. I got about 4 pages of describing all of that in the general directory. I knew better than to call her a gypsy. So I queried what part old school Lithuanian Persian she was, which is calling someone a gypsy. Again, another asterisk, another 3 pages of going on about Persian and Lithuania. Her reply first started with a smile, almost showed whiskers. Before she spoke a word, she made me feel like a cornered rat. Raton Mickey. What makes you say that? Do I smell? Have an unpleasant accent? I can't reproduce her accent because I barely. After tomorrow, I will really be speaking strange because I won't have any teeth. Yep, I'm going to have lots of teeth. Twig's house, Dave, reminds me of California artist who makes huge nests sculptures. Yeah, that might even be Dave. Might have changed his nomenclature. Well, you know, you can't analyze too much. Yeah, you know, I am a person who is naive. I trust everyone. But after Ronald Reagan and his great little term, trust but verify, so, you know, you can't overanalyze if you trust because all you're doing is, you know, doing your homework to making sure you're verifying. So, no, analyzing is not bad. Now, if it gets in the way of you having your life, you know, my first wife used to call me a compassionate computer. You know, she analyzed everything. I knew better to call her a gypsy, so I queried what part of old school Lithuania Persian she was. Her reply first started with a smile, almost showing whiskers. Before she spoke a word, she made me feel like a cornered rat. Raton Mickey. What makes you say that? She said. Do I smell? Have an unpleasant accent? Do I make you uncomfortable? Should I dislodge your head from between my breasts? Or should I choke you unconscious with them and take all of your cash and credit cards? That's all I do. Well, I like you. You're not creepy like most of the men here. You kind of are funny smart. I like that. It keeps me from getting rough with you. Did I tell you I like it rough? It was then, after her fifth time telling me that she liked it rough, that I noticed that the scarves that I first felt were part of her pirate costume were actually covering welts from her alabaster skin. Welts on her alabaster skin. She noticed that I had realized that she had recently been beaten badly, black and blue. I told you I like it rough. You should see the one who made these wounds, leaning into me with a drunken pride. He broke both his hands on beating me as I was strangling him to an inch of his life. I stopped there, for I did not want to lose a cash customer. But that's why I get paid so well. I am a specialist in all forms of depravity, insult, and punishment. I wonder what his, and she continued, I wonder what his parishioners would say if they knew their curate was using their church money to pay me to punish him for his pedophilia of their children, so he would feel redeemed enough to continue abusing their most innocent, their children. We exited the fantasy room, which was a vomit urine soaked carpet, navy blue neon light alley of desperation, disappointment, balding, overweight, incontinent, inconstant, incontinent, somewhat married men. Their gravely contorted faces momentarily lit by slices of bright disco ball illumination, like felons caught in the act by the flashbulb. Paparazzi, paparazzi, papist, paparazzi, gyrating, straining for release, each momentary lap dance correlated in their own upholstered, or corralled in their own upholstered chutes like a bull rider at a rodeo. Katz and I moved down the seats to the seats that pinned in the on-deck dancers. Their movements was reminiscent to used-up slaves waiting with desperate anticipation to be eaten by lions at the Roman Colosseum. Vicky, Katz's pit bull girl, chunky in the hooch and deadly in the headlights, leaned over with a leer, with a puke-piercing vomit voice that would only be appropriate for a burly drill sergeant to be using. With a shiver, I was ready to drop and give her 20, but she was only demanding I buy a $60 tiny bottle of semi-sweet swill. I pulled out my last Benjamin. Like a bird of prey, Vicky ripped it from my fingers. I was lucky not to have lost my hand, sticking the den founding father into the folds of her hooch, just one of Vicky's genome body locations that Ben would have loved to have stuck his tongue into. Thanks, I'll keep the change. Off she went, not to return. This was the third time she had extorted a Benjamin from me without delivering any service, except if you would consider almost making me hurl a service. But the Benjamins were a small price to keep Vicky at bay. I turned my attention back to Katz, who was tormenting the onstage dancer, a very attractive young lady without any pregnancy stretch marks, cesarean scars, or any tattoos that I could see. With a feline smile, Katz licked her middle finger, then inserted it into the attractive dancer's asshole, using that precious to bring her to a quick sex release. The attractive dancer let go a string of miraculous scatological profanities, MSPs. Reader, look to the directory. Principles of miracles. Now, Katz was my other girlfriend, along with my news reporter girlfriend. And how I met Katz was my news reporter girlfriend wanted to do a story on sex workers, because kind of up in this corner um, between Stewart and Jupiter were a string of like backwoods uh, men's clubs. And she wanted me to go with her. She goes, "You ever go to a men's club?" And I go, "Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I used to build them." "Oh, really?" I said, "Oh yeah, I know the story." "Oh, great. I need you. Take me." And so we went there, and so we're part of this, and she played my girlfriend, and that's at the time I was 62 or 3 or 4, and she was 25 or something, 7 maybe, and we were like you know a joke, like a story, like the old guy with the young girl, like, and she was on. And we went there and we played the gig where I wanted this young thing to go with me and watch me get a lap dance so she could learn how to do it, right? And that was her cover story. That's why she had her little notepad out taking notes. And so that's how I met Katz. And my reporter girlfriend, she's so beautiful. She's so sweet. She's so honest. She can never lie. And that's why she gets people to tell her stuff. It's like, I told her that. She was like, "I can't do this job. I can't lie." I said, "Well, no. You got it wrong. You were going to be great at this job, because you're going to be the beautiful, sweet, honest, kind person you are right in the middle of the scene, and you'll be the one person they want to talk to." So anyway, we went and did this, and I'm getting a lap dance from Katz, because Katz had this attitude about things, and she was the queen of this place, and she owned everyone. When we walked in, and we didn't go to her. She came to us and started, "What are you guys doing here?" And she goes, "Well, this is my boyfriend, and he wants me to do this, this, and this, and I'm just here to take notes." And she goes, "Oh, let's go back to the VIP room right away. Forget waiting for me to go on. We'll just go straight back there." So we did, and it enlivened all of our lives, right? But in that thing, and she's like, "Can I take pictures?" And she goes, "Well, I wouldn't mind, but there's cameras everywhere here capturing this, so they can then blackmail the people if they are of any importance. So I don't think those guys would like it. So no, you can't do that. But we could go back to your place or my place, and you could take pictures." And that's how I met Katz. So when we stayed there until 3 in the morning, and we went to there's this hotel. I frequent hotels for my work so much at that time that there were a lot of hotels that I would always go to. And so you go there that much, and you because you can just write a tip on it and someone else is going to pay for it. The people who work there get to like you, so you can get to do pretty much anything you want. So there was this very nice hotel that was on the beach, and it was connected to a really great restaurant that was pretty much open all the time. So we went there, had breakfast, steak and eggs, this and that, and lobster, and then we went down to the pool. It was like still like 4 in the morning, and it had a great jacuzzi. And I knew that I knew the guy who was on security. He'd be watching on the video camera, so I thought I'd give him a show. And so we did. Anyway, so in that whole process of having, and she's still taking notes and taking pictures, and Kat said, "So you're a reporter?" To my girlfriend. And she goes, "Well, he's really my boy." I said, "Oh, I've already figured that out, but you're a reporter. This guy is more than your boyfriend. This guy is like, he's showing you how to do the job, and that's great. And I'm all for it, you know. And that's when my, reporter girlfriend, just said, "Oh yes, blah 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 blah." And these two became best buds because they were like on different parts of the universe. And that's when I realized, this is going to be a good story. So let's see. No, Romas. And see, the thing about Roma is they're from everywhere. They're everywhere. In every little town you go to, you'll find a household. Yeah, Persian. You got to remember, see, the Persians are not the Muslim Empire. Persians are the Persian Empire, and they went from Asia all the way into Europe, and kind of, through Afghanistan, kind of went into Eastern Europe, right? And they were kind of part of, the Khazarian mob and things of that nature. But that's why they're different. And that's why the first people the Nazis started knocking off were the gypsies, not the Jews, the gypsies. Okay, I'm going to take the ice off my new cap and put it on my hip. Anyway, when you sleep on the ground, it's that last 3 inches, you kind of have to dive. You got to hit it right. Well, Lithuania, Romania, any of those Baltic, Eastern European guys were all there were no borders. And the Lithuanian Persian is a nice way. They're the most on the top of the heap of the Roma list. They're the aristocracy. So, they were trying to pretend. Anyway. Yep. Truth of our intent. Anyway, so that's where cats came into the picture. And so she liked my girlfriend, and she liked my relationship with her, and she liked that we had this relationship between the three of us, and she liked that a lot, and that it was a kind of thing of not normalcy, but my girlfriend was so sweet, so kind, so not innocent, like me, naive to a point, but very analytical. That's why she and I got along, and we had the hots for each other, but just at moments, because our minds were full of other stuff. It's just when we would click, and so cats liked making that click. So we had a very interesting kind of relationship. And it was very healthy. Uh, Principles of miracles. Miracles occur naturally as an expression of love. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is bigger or harder than another. Miracles are all the same. Miracles, as such, do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is way beyond evolution. All miracles are an expression of love's maximal per- personification of our Creator's devotion for all love's creation. And my little idea of, love's co-creation actually came from this relationship between one of the sweetest, kindest, smartest, truthful people in media, me, and a titty dancer who would slit your throat. I mean, her major moneymaker was beating up rich men, um, you know, so they could feel punished for all the evil that they've done, so they could do more evil. And so our little relationship was miraculous. A true miracle is that which inspires us to God's love. That's where I started to get into the idea that love is God. Just get the word God out of the way, which is the giver of true life. And all miracles show life is love's miracle. Love shall direct us very specifically on the true path for our life. All things that we need to know come from the miracle of love's love. When we embrace this love through our actions, we create the environment for miracles to be the habitual assurance of our righteous path. This separation of our ego's illusion caused our sanctified spirit to become oppressed by this deception that became our artificial soul, our counterfeit soul, our faux soul, our faux free will. Separation from our Creator's love is the monster from the id. That is how we were cast out of love's miraculous garden into what we incorrectly call the real world. There is nothing real about the hell on earth that we are imprisoned in by our own meat puppet ego utopian illusion existence. Katz was restless. She could move without moving. Her eyes jumped from chump to chump, looking for fresh meat, new prey. Because I wasn't prey, you know? I was part of her safe zone, right? And that's why she liked me to come visit her, you know? We could titillate each other, but we knew it wasn't going to go anywhere unless um, my naive, innocent truth seeker was along for the ride. Then we'd have some fun. Yep, typical anthropologist. Never apologize for those. But, it's only an edgy experience when viewed by someone's judgment, like somebody's religiosity. You know? When I lived with indigenous people in the way out in the deep green, I mean, there were 3 different groups that I was the first white guy they ever saw. They knew about white people because they were totally living in dream time, so they knew about everything. They just weren't physically there. And I was sent to those places to give them the heads up to get out of harm's way, because if they were there, they were going to just be dead. You know, the powers that shouldn't be the hidden hand, they don't negotiate. You know, they don't. Oh well, we're going to build you a little house over here and give you health care and school. No, they just. You know. And after Australia, I had, you know, in the next 20 years, contracted to go visit those people. Right? And I was coming from, hey, you better get out of harm's way. You better go someplace else, like on another dimension. So, you know, that's what life's about, is these experiences. As long as you do no harm, you know, my 3 rules, you know, doctor, do no harm, you know, don't get involved unless you can have a positive outcome and protect the innocence, and you can learn something. So, this relationship between my photojournalist, my journalist friend, and my sex worker friend fit all 3. Right? No harm was done. Um, we got the innocence out of the way, and we learned something, right? Come on, honey, Katz is saying to me. Come on, honey, you're being too quiet. Buy me a new drink. You know, whenever I start writing something, I'm in different places. You know, that's why I'm a time traveler. I'm like all over the place. Katz lifted her glass into the air like magic. A new one appeared, having gone through $666 in less than 44 minutes. I mean, that was another reason why Katz liked me. I just, you know, I was making a lot of money, but I have to say, whenever the 3 of us together, she liked to buy us dinner or pay for this or take care of that or take us to her favorite places that were like, what? Vicky took my credit card. I'll keep this and run the tab. I thought to myself, I need to close that card tomorrow. This was before the days of cell phones. Katz inquired, what gives? You know, at least before the days I got a cell phone. You are here to amuse me. You are not being amusing. Say something funny, smart. What could I say? I really liked this girl. But to be with her was like standing on a busy street corner waiting for a fatal accident. And the only time that wasn't going on was when the 3 of us were together and we were someplace else. I mean, every time we were in her circle, in her environment, in her universe, violence, craziness, just, and it was the metaphor of what was going on in the world. It was truly, she had I don't know if it was her father. She used to call her father, but like a priest father, like not daddy or dad or pop's father. And he was quite, you know, scholarly dude from the Ukraine. And then he went to, he was in a, he was theologian, you know, not quite a priest. He didn't want to do that. But he went on to Yugoslavia. I went to visit when I shot the Olympics. Um, I saw his hometown, Sarajevo. When I met him, it was years past Sarajevo getting obliterated. And so that energy of all of that death was like in Katz. She was born there and then, and I think he took her out. And I think her parents died. I think she saw her parents, her mother get raped, and her brothers and her father get horribly butchered. And so I was I was trying to write a lot of things about all of this. What could I say? I really liked this girl, but to be with her was like standing on a busy street corner waiting for a fatal accident. Even though she was pre-zombie, a dead woman walking, she could make me feel alive. Whereas my journalist friend could make me feel happy. So to be alive and happy at the same time with the three of us, that was interesting. All of humanity's history of folly seemed to be channeled right through all her actions. She exemplified both the same at the same time, good things happening to bad people and bad things happening to good people. What enthralls me about her is that she stood outside the perceived linear time, like Jesus or Judas. Never a word of why me, just moving forward, doing what fate had in order for her, keeping destiny's tapestry balanced and in order, keeping everything in the loop, being out of time by always being right on time for it all. And that's where we are in a tapestry, you know. We are in a tapestry. Hey, fish. Uh, so, so our this whole thing we're experiencing is a tapestry, and we're just a thread. You pull that thread, you get a bigger picture. And that's, again, all of these little things, metaphors, I put a little asterisk so you go read in the general directory in the back. Being out of time by always being right on time for all of it. I mean, most of us, we get lucky, we miss that intersection where the truck is going to T-bone us. Let's see. We're up to novel 3. For all times. For all what is called history, humanity has been kept out of the time's loop. Whenever we first see the torn thread of what we are told to believe in, we are first thrown a bone of distraction. And gang, that's why this time is, I keep talking about the, 40 days and 40 nights, the window of opportunity in the 18 months. Well, that's where we are right now. And our bone of distraction is Donnie Chump and this whole, motif of tribal personal politics. All you got to do is go look at the Ukraine and the Yugoslavia. Both of those places really mirror what's happened. Now look at Yugoslavia was torn apart into 3 separate countries, and hundreds of thousands of people died, if not millions, in the most terrible of ways by people who were their neighbors, by people who they were married into their families. It was like, now that can happen in Yugoslavia, a country of great riches and wealth and education, and they were the highest rung of the communist satellites, and they had a culture that you couldn't believe. Sarajevo was a beautiful city, and that's where we're going. Unless we change, we have a real opportunity. Guys like Chris Hedges, I really like Chris. He writes well, and he was in Yugoslavia during the war, and he was a Mideast bureau chief for the New York Times, and he couldn't lie anymore. He was like, a not as cute or innocent version of my news, journalist girlfriend, because he couldn't lie anymore. He had to tell what he saw, and not what his employers were telling him to say. And that's how he lost his job at the New York Times. They say, hey, you've got all these Pulitzer Prizes. We love you, guy. We love your writing. We love how you do this. But you got to do what we tell you to do. And he couldn't. And so that's why he's on RT and he's doing what he's doing. He's writing his books. But like anyone who's experienced trauma, um, it touches you in a way that it's very hard to heal. And so his writings since he left the New York Times have been very true, but somewhat one-sided in a way, because he's taking the whole picture of what's going on very truthfully, very clearly, very righteously. But he's not realizing the opportunity of love's co-creation. I mean, he saw so much horror. That's why I refused. I was a photojournalist and I only shot things of people in their truth of happiness, like artists and athletes and everybody else, even poor people, any people suffering, but in their place where they understood their superconscious mind, where they understood what they were going through. And so they were not happy about going through their torment, but they were just like me. John keeps saying, I'm back at the school at John's school, and I left him for 3 weeks, and I'm gonna, when the floor is ready, I'm gonna show that floor up. It's amazing. I mean, John is amazing, right? And he's sweet and he's kind and he's nice. He's just been by some outside force, and that's why I call him the canary in the coal mine, because his parents didn't do this to him, no more than what their parents did to them. It's like, after I was worked for the New York City Housing Authority, and I was a policeman actually, but I was acting as a shrink for, a whole project of 12,000 units, and I had this wacko crazed partner who was a U.S. Army Ranger jumping out of airplanes. And then it wasn't scary enough for her, so she went and became a SEAL. I think she was one of the first, SEAL. And they wouldn't put her out in the field because she was too scary, so she was a trainer. And then she got in the Air Force, where they let her be a sniper and whack people. They would just like infiltrate her in. So she could kill you 20 different ways. So we were the ultimate in good cop, bad cop, right? And so I don't blame my parents or anybody's parents, because I saw all these families and what kind of trauma they were going through. It was as traumatic because half of those buildings were being used as crack houses, and the city just was, it was two people looking after 12,000 people, 12,000 families, maybe 20,000 people. And, I'm supposed to be wearing a uniform and carrying a gun and all that stuff. And I didn't do that, just had a I Love New York t-shirt and a pair of shorts and flip-flops. And she was, Mac daddied out like she was going to go in country. And she was Irish, Puerto Rican, red hair, green eyes, this suntanned skin of beauty, of unbelievableness, and an attitude like, don't get her mad. And she loved me, because I accepted her for everything she was, and we had always had a great. We would, and I was still the disco dude, and we'd go through a tour. We go and put our stuff in the locker, take a shower, and go out dancing. She loved to dance. She loved to eat. I mean, she was burning so many calories. She was so angry. So for that year and a half that I was with her, that was good times. But I saw things. So when people complain about their parents being terrible, like this girl whose parents paid $12 million to get her into Stanford, and now they're going to jail. And she goes, all the problems in my life are my parents. My life is terrible. She's got a trust of $40 billion, and my life sucks. So Um, you know, what can I say? But anyway, how long have we been going? Oh, hour and 10 minutes, maybe another half hour. There's two people here, so whenever I hear people complain about their parents, all I have to do is remember um, these people who would chain their children to um, the radiator, or you know, I remember we took some kids out of this family because we were the, we were the housing authority police, right? So if the New York City cops didn't go with the social workers, we did, right? And there was only three social workers for the whole little unit of, 1,100 buildings, and so they liked the fact that I could do their job for them, and they wouldn't have to get in trouble or get shot at or whatever. Anyway, so but there were a number of homes that we had to take kids out of, and I remember we went to this one place, and we arrested the family, and the kids were screaming, and they were scared of the social worker, but they loved my partner because she looked like you know Glinda the good witch with lots of guns, and so they actually felt safe with her, and they liked me, and because I looked like Santa Claus. Anyway, so we went into this bedroom to look around for them, and we just heard this little sniveling sound, and they were in a closet, and there were three kids in there. One was about 9, one was about 6, one was about 4 or 5, and they had spent their whole life in the closet. They had not really seen light. So when we opened that door and that sun was coming through that window, they were like blinded. So I said, "Oh, okay. This is gonna have to work." Everybody, close their eyes, close the door. I went in there with them. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna take you out of here, and we're gonna take you to a place that'll be very nice. I'm gonna stay with you, until you feel safe." And Mary said, "Yes, you can. My partner can stay with you." And so we did. We took them into a bonding home, not into a group home but a home for babies, infants, because these people were professional and they were there because they loved children. And so they found a room that had no windows in it, and we've got very dim lights, and we slowly got them able to be into sunlight. So, but these kids were messed up, and they had not had vitamin D or anything worthwhile eating their whole life. We just kept bringing them food, and they just, So when I hear people complaining about their parents, not so much, right? And so that's what this story is about. It's about the constant terror and trauma that our psychotic society puts us in. Boom. For all what is called his story, asterisk, humanity has been kept out of the time's loop, being those threads in the carpet. Whenever we first see the torn thread of what we are told to believe in, we are first thrown a bone of distraction, right? War, 9/11, Donald Trump. So every time something like that comes, something on the other shoe hasn't fallen yet. Bread and circus in Rome's time, the plundering of the Crusades in the times of the Holy Roman Empire, fast food, HD TV, and never-ending social jihad of our times of war for oil of our soul. If what is being pushed as truth becomes too thread-barren and existence becomes too horrific to stomach, and we start to question what the truth is, it's throw them to the lions or off with their heads or burn them at the stake, or bag and tag them and send them to Gitmo, or brand them as a, what do they call it? Conspiracy theorist. Neither real nor principled, this dogmatic, egocentric, institutionalized nightmare that we call reality is a dualistic, separated zero sum existence, defined as colons, ECHELONS, of acceptability of our ego's express asset or liability in fraudulent currency, bankrupt from the deficit of our Creator's unconditional forgiving love. Meaning, when we are cut off from that, that's when we are, you know, the currency of the live materialism cuts us off and gives us a deficit of our Creator's unconditional forgiving love. When our emotional spiritual perception is valued as a commercial product of our ego's meat puppet fictitious reality. And I got that one from George Carlin. He does a great rant about religion. I mean, that's one of his things he goes after, and I love it. He goes, he goes, you think a car salesman is full of bull crap? Well, religions are way, 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 way above that. And he's right. They make you believe that there's some invisible guy in the sky watching you. And he's got these 10 rules, and if you break any of one, you're going to hell for eternity, right? Or you're going to burn, suffer, forever. But he still loves you. And he wants money, Here you have this omnipotent God who controls everything, but he just can't control his checkbook. He needs more money, So that's what I'm talking about here, how religion is turned into commerce, how our spiritual existence is traded for cash, Right. Our emotional spiritual perception is valued as a commercial product of our ego's meat puppet fictitious reality, manifesting our soul to commerce, linking the buying and selling of our spiritual connection as a mere exchange. Meat puppet religious, produced in bulk for when our highest potential co-creation of love's love is objectified, turning all spiritual expressions into religious commerce for the use of the meat puppet hegemony by the reptile 1/10 of 1% that separate we, the children of God, from our Creator's love, thus turning all spiritual experience into simple business plan, suitable for trading one's soul for the illusion of the appropriate or sufficient meat puppet. So it was very interesting being in this three-way. And it wasn't a three-way. It was like three coming into one. We were like the Trinity. That's what we used to call ourselves. The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. And, I was the Father. That newspaper girl was the Son. And Katz was the Holy Ghost. And I couldn't use Kat's name because she died. I'm going to go on about how I died, and that's really her. And to describe her death, I may in another novel at another time, but when I was writing this, it was because being with them together, I had, again, on this time travel, I kept having these blinks of what was going to happen to these two women. And I was trying to doctor do no harm, don't get involved without having a positive end game, and getting the innocent out of harm's way, and learning something. So I did no harm. I learned something, but the second one was difficult because I'm still not involved, but my friendship with my journalist friend is still there because she's still alive. Katz is dead. And I kept seeing her putting herself in really, because you get more and more black and blue. I could see that certain organs were being, not good. And so at one point, we had this, her and I, the three of us came together, and we were on the beach at that Italian restaurant, and the journalist had to go. She had an interview, so she left. And Katz and I, the Italian guy gave us this big bottle of this Italian liqueur, which is really tasty. It's orangey, lemony liqueur. It really, it's like the Italian version of the psychotropic European wormwood. Anyway, so we were on the beach, cabana over us, so we barbecued, and we'd run into the ocean, and she had the skimpiest of skimpy. And we'd run in and we'd kind of cuddle in the waves, and then either of us got hit by a big wave. Because mostly it was just up and down, and that's good for cuddling. But getting hit by a big wave, not so good. Anyway, especially when I was weighing almost 500 pounds. The up and down and buoyancy of the ocean, salt water, was great. And anyway, long story short, we sit on the beach and we're drinking this stuff. And she always had a spliff, so we're smoking away. And she goes, you keep telling me these stories about what you're writing, and she was a smart person because I know that you can see elements of the future and time and space. My grandma used to see it. And I see the same look in your face, and especially when you look at me. And so, what are you seeing? I said, well, what would your grandma say about the future? And she said, well, my grandma would say that I can't tell the future. I can only see patterns. I said, same with me. And I said, the pattern that I see that surrounds your life is not a good one. Look at your body. It's you're a beautiful woman. You got this alabaster skin, and you look like a leopard. You got all these spots on you, and you go into the sun to kind of try to get your white skin to match the black and blue spots. And then they turn red, then you turn all red. So she couldn't really get a tan. Now, the Pulitzer Prize winner, she could. She came from that part of the gene pool. So, anyway. What happened with Katz and us was that, luckily, at a certain point, I got a gig and I had to go. And pretty much shortly after I got that gig to work for a desperate lawyer in another part of Florida, the journalist, she got another, she was going up the ladder. So she went to a different market, instead of a 12th rung market, she moved up to a 7th rung market. And so, we left. And it was about 2 weeks of us realizing, I got a gig. I do too. And, Katz was going to be left to her own devices. So we had a really nice, this is when I still had my little house down in the Keys. And we went down there and spent 4 days in the Keys, and we had the greatest of time. Really special memories, and snorkeling and off a boat out in the reefs and going to islands and camping out on islands and just having and eating at really good restaurants and just having a really great time. And it was like we were in World War One, and we were a canteen. You know what a canteen is? A canteen is when a group of people who are in a dangerous situation drink themselves silly and save the best bottle to last, and save it, don't uncork it, and say, we are going to drink this later by whoever survives what we're going to have to go into. So we made that. And the journalist, she was in the most, she was the most, stayed in the same place. Me, I'm moving around all the time, still am. And Gats had a lifestyle that wasn't, the healthiest. So we all split up. And after about a month, I came back to my friends in Port St. Lucie, and Katz was dead. And the story I tell about myself is I put myself in her place. And what happened? Anyway, so there's three of you. Hour and 27 minutes. Let's read some of your. What did I ask you? I like raise my stuff, but I was never apologizing. I King of Gypsy's history, amazing. Watch a ton of stuff on them, and I will look that one up. Conscious research. Yo, AA research. Anyway, so and I've been reading my novel, 43 of 43, and it's the story of a number of people who I wrote this in 9/11/13. That's when I started writing this. All the dates I put on my story should go to XRATTED, and their dates, those are when I started. Anyway. So, whoops. Drop that again. And the beauty of this, gang, you can go back and watch this and see what it was. And so this evening, I'm going to do a continuation of reading this. I've read how many pages? Principle of Miracles. Let's see. Thus turning all spiritual experience into simple business plan, suitable for trading one's soul for the illusion of the appropriate or sufficient meat puppet purpose of existence, of spiritual commerce, done for profit and power over the dispersion of love's love, with the primary objective of religion for making the spiritual expression ego's illusion into a monetary exchange for control of our creator's soul. That is love's love for its creation, thus manifesting God into the image and likeness of the meat puppet reptile ego will. The ego reptile, David Icke, about the reptile motif, and it's not like the reptile world is trying to control us from some planet Claire, just like in Futurama. Those reptiles come from Omenon 6, right? and they're going to destroy the world if the TV show goes off the air. Um, you know, um, that is the reptiles. The reptile is that part of our brain in our cerebral cortex. It's a reptile core. When we were cold back in the day. And then the big rock blew that away, and all the little creatures that could get under a rock were kind of saved. And so a little bit of reptile, a little bit of mammal kind of got together and made us. And so that's this story. So when David Icke talks about the queen being a reptile, which she is, because she's more of that. It's not that some reptile planet is controlling us. No, sorry. But it's our reptile selves that do this. Right? And it's when we co-create with love, we can cut that off. That's right, Jane. FCRC. Yeah, it's got to go in the beginning of the story here. Go back to the tape. Back to the replay. Right? Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And tonight's thus manifesting God into the image and likeness of the meat puppet reptile ego will, turning our soul's loves into ego's ownership of love's love as materialistic non-existence. I turned towards to cats and smiled sheepishly, saying something stupid and not too smart. Cats got my tongue, I responded. Leaning over to me and parting my lips, she sucked in my tongue and swirled it around in her mouth, letting it slide out slick and then a little nip. That's not the only thing I got. The taste of my blood on her saliva on my lips was intoxicating. She tipped my head down and she tipped her head down and pulling back the drawstring of my cheap Walmart shorts and spat on my rod. Then she spat on her left palm. She was a southpaw. She grasped my manhood and made me proud. I erupted like a old faithful all over her. Nice shooting, cowboy, she said. My eyes rolled back in my head, relaxing. I drew in the deep breath of the club's rancid air. Just another miraculous synchronicity of all my relations. Not a meat puppet religious moment. The taste of tobacco, no matter how foul, is still smoke, still a sacred messenger to heaven's white light faith. So, research. Is this where you're hanging out? This is where I used to hang out in Fort Lauderdale. This is one of my photographs I took, and then I put it on my friend's computer and did Photoshop. That was like my first experiment in Photoshop. The illusion of our meat pie, we are. We cheat, lie, and murder. Where In that light that surrounded me, in my imaginary mirror, out stepped a little girl, a white pinafore dress, red hair and pigtails, green eyes, and cat's feline smile. She spoke. You will know. Just then, I came back to the blare of Jay-Z's hip-hop rap about bitches and bling, leaving me without any resolution to that which I was supposed to know. It was bad enough to be searching for a vision of redemption by a miracle muse communion to fulfill the vision of communion of love's one love, but to have it snatched away just as you were having it, and risk such a cost for it. There is nothing more soul wrenching as having one's guardian angel being a seeming soulless titty dancer demon named Cats, who I loved without redemption. I could only have love's loss as my companion when I was with her. And that was the conversation we had on the beach when our third wheel went off to work. And, you know, and that's what she saw herself as a redemptive angel of death. That's why she lived the life she did. And that's why she so appreciated me and um, our third wheel. And she wasn't a third wheel. She was the Trinity. We were the Trinity, right? And it was whenever she and I, or one of the three of us, whenever Cats, she would step out of that persona of a titty dancer and be her true self, that little girl in the pinafore with the red hair. And she would be that. And that's when we really, 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 really had some amazing times together. Because the other member of the Trinity, who is the Pulitzer Prize, soon to be Pulitzer Prize reporter, she was that innocent girl and stayed that innocent girl. She was blessed by her circumstances and knew it, and then came around, and instead of being selfish, she gave it back by living a life of moment to moment experience so she could write it down and tell the story. She was a true Griot in training. She was still young. She was living the stories. But when Katz and I had that conversation on the beach, she said, I've missed death so many times. When my parents died, my family was executed. Um, I only survived because I wasn't there when um, the killers came. I just arrived as the killers left. And I in my approach, saw the killers kill. And I stood out of the way and let them leave because I thought I could rush in and save my family, but I couldn't. They died bloody in my arms. Oh, and then she was stuck in Sarajevo for a year and a half, couldn't get out. And she tried to save people, and everyone she knew and loved died in her arms. She didn't die. And then she came to America and got involved in lots of things because she was just strung out from that experience and she just wanted to die and she couldn't friggin' die, no matter how much harm she put herself in her way. So she then changed sideways and said, okay, I'm going to be, the avenging angel, and I'm still going to put myself in harm's way. And at some point, I will die sooner rather than later. And that's what she said. And there's nothing you or our sweetie can do to not have that happen. And so when we split, we had that beautiful long week in the Keys together. And we made a tontine, drank ourselves silly and kept the best bottle for last, saying that we would drink it to the first one of us who dies and toast. So Kat said, She opened it up and said, and there, we'll get another bottle. Wow. So when we went away for that month and a half and came back, she was gone. And that's when, I started doing an outline for the story. Before that, when I had sensed what was going to happen. And so I didn't want to put that into her, to write that she was going to die before she died. So when I was writing that, it was me who died. Right? And pretty much what happened to me in this story is kind of what happened to her. Okay, so let's see what the gang is saying. So Channel just kind of showed up. So he said, yo. Fish said, yo. Jane said, FCRC. Yep. Love you all. Apt on your spat on your rod. Yep, spat on my rod. In public, in the middle of the titty bar. But she loved doing stuff like that. She loved pushing the envelope beyond existence. And she always tried to get a rise out of me. I remember one time I was sitting between the two of them at an IHOP, and cats went at it on both of us. And she went under the table, and me and the innocent one were like, and the innocent one, she was quite loud when she got excited. So it's like that scene out of when Sally met what's his name in the diner. Anyway, look at that. 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 42 seconds. So, and that's, experiences like these are what manifest me as the Griot Sensei Al Bob, and what manifests me in telling these stories, because they really bring forth a deeper realization of the human existence. It's not just buying a car or a house or getting a trophy girlfriend, spouse, because they're trophy husbands along with trophy wives. They kind of go together. Trophies and bookends. Anyway, so I think this is a good place to stop. I'm getting a little hungry. It's noon. Maybe I'll do something before, because I was trying to do a live chat yesterday afternoon from the school, and there was a lot of buffering. So I might do one before I spank out of here, maybe around 3 o'clock. I want to do a little reading. So, if you want, let's say come on back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll continue the story. Okay, and you might go back and look at this and maybe, get some good questions, some good insights. That's really where I want the chat to go, us to expand, as the Griot motif. Okay. Love you guys. Have a beautiful afternoon, and I'll catch you in a little bit. It's 3 o'clock, 3 p.m.